Hope you had a Brett Rippon sort of night. Hope you enjoyed some preseason football Hall of Fame game. Bears over the Texans 21-17. The new kickoff rules. We got to talk about that and how people hate change.
God,
before we get into Pete Rose and your other NFL thoughts, Rich, about this coming season, got to talk about how the new kickoff really didn't provide any real excitement. At first, like Danny G hit us up, at first, he was like, it looks a little more violent.
Well, you know what? I have thoughts on it.
That was my first observation, too, but
I think it was because that first Chicago returner slipped down and had that violent collision. So what came to my mind immediately was guys who hit the hole quick are going to be the ones you want back there returning, because with that wall of defenders, there's just one or two little holes there, and if you can hit that hole, you got that whole green field ahead of you.
That's what she said.
But like we said yesterday, it doesn't matter if it's the greatest rule in the world. It's going to take time for people to adjust, and even if it pans out to be something positive, people are still going to hate it. It's just the nature of everybody.
Dude, people hate change.
Have you seen social media? People love to complain.
That was my big takeaway. And let's get into it right now. Your initial thoughts. There's a couple layers. Number one, when a new rule is put into place or a new strategy, you can't really see how it works without a bigger sample size and without the star players in action.
Right.
Like, these are backups trying to make the squad.
This is like a liquid launch.
Yeah, I want to see Tyreek Hill or Debo Samuel or DK Metcalf or some beastodon.
This is like the beta version of what we're going to get.
Of course, soft launch.
This is a sample. But already social media is saying it's going to ruin the NFL.
You know, I DVR'd it, and I was like, I'll watch later, because after the show, I wanted to go to the gym, had a couple errands to run, and I said, I'll watch it later. But I did watch on Twitter the first kickoff return, because I couldn't resist. I'm like, I got to see it now. All the comments, a bunch of knuckleheads, a bunch of jabronis saying, oh, you're ruining football. It's the over. Hey, why don't you ruin the game? And it just goes with the narrative of bozos.
You know, I look at it this way.
Bozos hate change.
It goes both ways. Nobody's getting a real advantage here. Both teams have to adjust to the new style of play. I referenced baseball's extra inning rules where there's a player that starts at second. You know, it just is what it is. So you roll with it as a fan. I just roll with it. Both teams get that opportunity. So people still hate it. I like it.
I love
this one is still too new to have a real opinion on it. But much like anything in life, and we've said this a million times on the COVINO and Rich show, give it 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks. It's like your phone update, and that's our famous example.
Yeah.
Anytime your phone gets an update, you hate it. You're like, the old one was bad because you were used to it. We just like what's familiar. Familiarity is comforting. And then when they change it up on us, we hate it. We complain. We ask our friends if they like it. Sucks, right? Everything sucks. Oh. I hate it. 2 weeks later, you realize, oh, you know what? I actually kind of like it now. And that's what's going to happen here, most likely, if you give it a chance.
I remember when the iPhone went from having a button you actually press to, you just swipe up.
Oh, yeah. You thought that was going to be the worst.
I remember thinking, like,
you didn't want a new phone because of it.
I remember thinking, I don't know if I want to get one of these new phones. And then everyone was like, way to go. Apple blew it.
Or a new computer work system. It could be anything.
How about when they took the headphone jack away for the first time? We were like, how are we going to use the DJ headphones we have with the cord? Everything went Bluetooth.
This change sucks. And you know what? The older you get, here's the thing, too. Take a look at the people complaining. Either they're really old school as far as their mentality, or they're just old. Yeah. Because you look at your own parents or your grandpappy. The older they get, the harder it is for them to navigate around the change. Like, Rich,
you get cranky.
Exactly. Like your dad setting up all his apps on his iPad. Oh, this is very frustrating. Right? Or setting up his new streaming devices.
I told you, every year when my dad and I, and this is a great father-son bonding thing, my dad and I gamble on football together. We share an account because we like to go over our football bets together. It's our thing. Me and my dad love football more than anything. And every year, to start in our gambling account, my dad will hit me up with some money for his side of it, right? Yo, Dad, Just Venmo me. What are you going to give me? $500, $1,000, whatever. Oh, no, Richie, I'm going to send you a check in the mail. I'm like, a check? That's not, no. Go on your phone right now. No, I don't know Venmo.
As you get older, it's harder to adjust to the changes.
People don't like change.
I'm sure you've seen it along the way, too.
Yeah.
You're struggling just to buy a pay-per-view nowadays. You're like, do I have to buy it from my phone? Are they going to send me a code? How does this work? It's frustrating. So you could see why people don't like change, but we're here, COVINO Rich, to say, relax.
Give it a week.
Give it 2 weeks. 2 weeks even.
I'm
You think you know more than the NFL?
Let me
Give
tell
me
you.
a break.
Some people have this odd belief that everything used to be better. And I'm telling you right now, it's just inaccurate. Like baseball, you said. Great example with baseball. The pitch clock, there were people that said, it's going to ruin the game.
Now you have sweet-ass 2-hour and 20-minute games. You're like, yeah, feels good to me.
When the games are quicker, I'm a fan. Maybe 5 to 10 times a year, there might be a guy that gets called on, it's strike 2, you didn't get in the box. Big deal. Whoopity-doo.
That's how you keep it moving.
Hey, you got to keep the game moving. So I love the pitch clock. And at first, much like everyone else, I'm like, why do they start in extra innings with a guy on second? Now, I love it.
There you go.
Extra innings, knowing that
You know why?
it's equal for both teams.
Plus, it's like, equal for both teams, but you're like, let's get on with it. Oh, free baseball? That's great. I got things to do. I got other shows to watch.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I got other things to get to.
So-
Come on, I got to give my kid a bath.
for the resistors, for the people that are stubborn and hate change, I'm telling you right now, I promise you, you will end up loving this new kickoff, because the reality is, last year, the year before, what do you like? I described it yesterday. How many times do you turn on Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and they're reading the names of the offensive linemen while the quarterback jogs out on the field? Because what is it? It's an automatic touchback.
Right.
It felt
And that's
like
not
80-something% of the time. There's got to be a stat that it's 7 or 8 out of 10 times where it was automatic touchback to start the game.
Yeah, the reality is you didn't see much yesterday. But again, that's one game, the Hall of Fame game.
Don't hate change.
Yeah, and don't hate change.
You know where it goes back to?
It's not easy,
When your
though.
first girlfriend dumped you.
It's all easier said than done. What do you mean?
Remember when your first girlfriend dumped you in high school? We
Yeah.
all know that awful feeling.
Oh, it was the worst.
You're like AJ Soprano. Remember on The Sopranos? He was like, I'll never love anyone again.
No, he said, because I'm currently watching, again, she was the best thing that ever happened in my whole life.
Rich, you weren't far off. League-wide last season, it increased to 77%, the touchback rate.
So if the touchback rate was
It's a waste of a play.
roughly 8 out of 10 times, how could anyone resist more action?
Well, it's intended to be more action and safer.
So if you're telling me safer and more action,
That's
how
the-
could
that's the
any,
goal.
How could any bozo say, I don't like it?
Again, we're talking new kickoff rules and change.
Give it a chance.
And again, we hope you enjoyed the game last night. It was just nice. I was talking to Dan Byer yesterday. I'm like, DB, you watching tonight? I mean, you had it on in the background.
Yeah.
For me, it was like the Olympics. It's on. It's on in the background.
I'm not honed in
Exactly,
necessarily, but
not
I'm
yet.
watching.
Not yet.
But going back to your high school girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
do you remember that feeling? Because we all share the same feeling. When you got dumped for the first time, you were thinking,
Miserable.
no girl will ever kiss like her. No girl will ever smell perfect like her. No
the way
girl's
she
ever
smiled at me.
No girl will ever love me this way. And you were like desperate and sad.
Oh, yeah.
And then you met another girl and you're like, oh yeah, I adjusted. Time goes on. Life goes on.
Life goes on. And by the way, you just explained it's called my dwelling theory, apartment theory, or house theory. You see an apartment or a house, and you're like, this is the greatest apartment, greatest house ever. And you put an offer in on it, and you're like, oh, some guy bought it in cash? And you think to yourself, you're never, ever going to find a house that cool again. But you know what? You do.
Yeah. And the house you end up living in, you're like, oh, this is better than the one I thought I wanted.
I know.
So
it
just-
always happens that way.
Listen, we're not trying
You
to
thought the old rules, here's how it does it.
Yeah.
You thought the old rules couldn't get any better. They were the best. Oh, it's so great. These new rules suck. Oh, it'll never be as good as what you had. Yeah. Guess what? Give it 2 weeks, and you're going to be like, yeah, you know what? It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
We're not trying to be Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins.
You know what? Sometimes you have to be, though, when you see how upset people get on social media.
I'm not trying to be some motivational speaker, but guys, a lot of times change is a good thing. Sometimes. Thank you, Iowa Sam.
It is true. You got to evolve a little bit. A little bit.
You know, I mean, in our lifetime, changes in the world of sports.
And you know what happens, Rich?
For the most part, I would say 9 out of 10 times, I can look back and say, that was a good idea.
You don't adjust to those changes. You don't roll with the changes. You become a dinosaur. You become left behind. You become obsolete because everyone else is moving forward, and you're stuck on that old stuff. You're living analog in a digital world.
Danny, do you remember you came up in the music radio world before you pivoted to sports? Do you remember the resistors, the old school radio guys that got mad? They're like, I want to play records or CDs, and then when they went to the computer systems in the 2000s, where iHeart and SiriusXM plays all their music off of computer programs.
Yeah. When I first started in this business, touchscreens were the popular thing. It was the digital. We were at the time, everybody was converting the CDs into the hard drive systems, and then you would run the radio station from the digital touchscreen.
But all the older guys didn't want to make
No,
it.
they're like a touchscreen.
There were guys that took pride in like, when I edit in the editing room, I have reel-to-reels and I use razor blades to cut. And you're like, no, dude, it's on a computer now. Those resistors, guess where they are now? Retired, unemployed, goodbye.
Because they didn't make the adjustment. You don't want to get left behind in life, in sports, in relationships. Relevance is a choice. Remember that. We're not saying you got to jump on every trend. That's not our point. But if the change is happening, roll with it. You're only making yourself mad for no reason. So it happened yesterday. Your thoughts. We gave you something to think about. Your thoughts. We're saying 2 weeks. Give it 2 weeks. Can't make that assessment now.
I mean, listen, not every change is great. Let me make that clear. But I think most of them you can find a positive in. And let me give you one more.
Go ahead.
As a Mets fan, and you know who else should feel this way? Padres fans, Braves fans, Pirates fans. Who else is in that mix? Oh, Arizona Diamondbacks fans. All these teams that are fighting for those wild cards in the NL.
Yeah.
You take this game.
You guys would have been sellers already.
25 years ago,
You'd
when
been
there was
done.
like one wild card,
Yep.
you'd be like, yeah, dude, I guess we're sort of out of it later. It keeps more fans interested, so every change has a positive. What's up, DB?
I have a thought on a change because we're not really in basketball mode, but the resetting of the shot clock, not entirely. So in the NBA, if you miss, it goes back to 14 seconds. In college basketball, resets to 20. I mean, there was a time when we were growing up where you had a 45-second shot clock in college. You missed a shot, you could throw it back out. You would take a minute 30 off of the clock.
It's insane. Great rule change.
Yes. Now, it's been trimmed down to 30 seconds, and if you get an offensive rebound, it's not a full 30, you're back to 20. That is what I think is, one of those rule changes that really help the game.
And
Without
most of
a
the
doubt,
time, even if it doesn't pan out, Rich, the intent is for the greater good and the growth of the game. Like, the intent isn't to ruin your experience, Bart, Harold, George.
Are you saying old guy names?
Ebenezer. It's not designed to ruin your experience. It's designed to make it better for today's world. So why are you so resistant?
You're always
and
trying to-
again, we sound preachy. Trust us. We feel the same way a lot of times.
But then I condition myself to say,
Exactly.
change is not bad. Change is not bad.
Exactly.
In fact, listen, the fan
When it's time
experience.
to change. It's time to rearrange.
The fan experience. Time to change. Peter Brady style.
Time to rearrange.
Most changes are done to enhance the fan experience, whether you want to resist it or not. I know, Danny G, you hate the Clippers because you're a Lakers guy.
I don't hate them. Some of their fans are a little annoying.
So my barber, pun intended, is a Clippers fan. No joke. My barber, Addy, we had to change our appointment this week because last night he went to the new Intuit. What is it? What is the
Intuit Dome?
Intuit Dome?
Yeah.
Yo,
The Clipper wall.
he showed me videos. That place looks sick.
Yeah,
Everything
because
about it, because-
with modern technology, if you build a new arena or stadium right now, it's going to be so slick.
Remember, they got like cannons that shoot out of the screens for the fans. Like,
You see that? You see the scoreboard? It's like a
Crazy,
circle
yeah.
thing. Like, dude, just keep that in mind all the time. When there's an iPhone change, a sports change, any change, for the most part, it's done with good intentions to make the game better. I get it. Old school cats will never like it. But keep an open mind. That's all. We don't have to harp on it. We don't want to be preachy. It just, I
And
was
you know what,
shocked.
Rich?
I was
To
shocked
be
that
fair,
the social media feedback was very leaning in the direction of this stinks. And I'm like, now you're just saying everything stinks.
to be fair, though, it might suck, But it's still too early to say.
But if
that's the reality.
But Danny Radio on the radio, Danny G just gave you the stat, and I was actually pretty close.
Yeah, you were.
Roughly 8 out of 10 kickoffs resulted in touchbacks. So 8 out of 10 times you were getting zero action.
It's a nothing burger, as you would say.
Yeah, so if it was a nothing burger then, one of the ones that I loved, and of course people hate change, when they moved the extra point back. I mentioned that yesterday. It used to be so automatic that it was like, really? All right, chip shot, automatic 7. When they made that a reasonable field goal where it wasn't so automatic, that was great. Remember when the NFL, when we were kids, I know you might forget this, there was no two-point conversion. That was a college thing. When they introduced the 2-point conversion to the NFL, there were people saying, you're ruining the game. Would you want the NFL right now to go back to no 2-point conversions and only extra points from like the 3-yard line? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't.
No, not now.
All right, let's say hi to, is it Bart? Oh, Bert.
That was close.
Hey, Bert in Georgia.
877-99 on Fox and at Covino and Rich if you want to chime in at Fox Sports Radio. What up, Bert?
Hey there, it's Big Bert here.
What's up, Big Bert?
Covino. Hey, how you guys doing? Covino Rich, man, first-time caller but long-time listener.
Thank
man,
you.
It's like sitting down having a couple of beers with you every evening.
Thank you.
Enjoying the banter you guys do, man. Keep it up. So I was saying, change is not always a good thing,
That's true.
Especially when you think about TV shows where they try to switch out the cast but don't even let you know that they switched out. So the actors,
Viv.
hey, I'm old Aunt Viv, man. I'm pre-Aunt Viv, man. When Fresh Prince switched it out, I was like, nah, but I still watched the show, but it wasn't the same.
But
man.
you know what? I'm a positive guy, so I like to look at life as Jefferson was better than Steve on Married with Children. So sometimes change is good.
Yeah, and Furley was better than Roper, in my opinion.
Furley was better than Roper.
Furley just brought more laughs, in my opinion. Well,
Jack!
Roper was great, but Furley was better.
Mrs. Roper? Let me
But at least they presented them as two separate characters. Can you imagine if they tried to trick you?
They were cousins.
Yeah, like, oh no, it's the same guy. He just looks a little different today.
I got a question for you.
That's what Bert was really getting at.
Yeah.
though. He doesn't like being duped. Like, hey, whoa, don't mistake my intelligence.
All of us
and try
real
to pull the
Fresh
wool
Prince of
over my
Bel-Air
eyes.
fans were upset with Aunt Viv disappearing.
Well, you're the one that brought up Ropers, so I got to ask my favorite question.
Oh, boy.
When you think back to childhood TV shows, not cartoons like the shows you and your family watch, the Who's the Bosses, the Growing Pains, the Fresh Princes, the Alfs, the Cosby shows before he was creepy. Who was the most, how do I say this politely, chalked up woman in television?
Oh, Mona from Who's the Boss?
Mona from Who's the Boss, Mrs. Roper, Stanley,
Stanley.
or Blanche from the Golden Girls.
Oh, what about Peg Bundy?
Or Peg Bundy.
They were all horned up. Can I say that?
I think you can.
I can. I mean, in
Peg Bundy, Blanche,
a
Mona,
respectful way.
or Mrs. Roper. That might be the Mount Rushmore. Mrs. Roper. Remember Mr. Roper couldn't keep up with her?
Angela, Mona was always down for something, bro.
Mona would have jumped on Tony had she had the chance.
Oh, Mona. Hey, yo.
And Blanche?
Yeah.
My goodness.
So, yeah, change isn't always good. It's like your dad when he shaved his mustache that one time. You're like, oh,
What did you do? And let's not forget Peg Bundy. Al would sit on the couch and she'd be up in the bedroom being like, Al! And he just didn't want any of that.
It's not always good, but the intention is good, and it's too early to tell. The new kickoff, again, didn't provide much excitement.
It will.
But if you watched and paid attention to social media, you would have thought it's ruining the NFL, and we're here to tell you, relax, it's not. At least not yet.
DB's Seahawks are down late in the game, and they throw DK Metcalf back there, and he busted open to the 50-yard line and gives the Seahawks like a chance. Then we're going to say, oh, there, look at that's the excitement. When the Dolphins are in a tight game and they're like, yo, Tyreek Hill, get in there. And he turns on the Jets and he makes it past midfield.
To Danny's point, I feel the same way. I don't even know if they're going to get to the 50. I think you're going to get all or nothing. I think they're tackled or they're gone.
God,
I don't think, because
like the female rugby player that was just gone.
That's what I think we're going to get with this. I don't think there's going to be any, because I think it's going to be so difficult from anybody on the other side of the field to have any sort of angle to go up and make a tackle.
You get him on that first
yes
collision. What would you call it? The first with
the first line of defense. There was like two little creases you could see open, and if you don't hit one of those at full speed, you're not getting through that wall.
On first
if you
contact,
do,
when that defense and offensive line make first contact. You're right. 1 or 2 bad blocks on the left or right, someone's going to see a hole, and it might be gone.
You just have the kicker.
That's exciting.
But no, I want 8 out of 10 touchbacks.
Right.
Come on.
All right. So
Use your head.